Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. It's May 22nd with a beautiful and hot, unusually hot day here in Winnipeg. And this is according to James and not me because I haven't been outside since like May 14th. So, as always, every Friday we broadcast here to you on our YouTube channel here with some updates and some important things that we want to share with everyone with regards to the pandemic and how it affects our dear dental industry. And there's always something that's happening out there in the industry. And today we have quite a few important topics that we want to talk about. We're going to do more introductions. We have with us on the top left hand side corner Noel. He's the account manager, national account manager for all of our independent hygienists and denturist clients. On the top right hand side corner, we have Jay Camet, who is the account manager for dental, and he covers Manitoba and non GTA Ontario minus Ottawa, whatever. So, anyways, Ontario and Manitoba, and completing him on the bottom right-hand side corner, we have Mike Jenson, the account manager for Quebec, then GTA, Ottawa, and our beloved Maritimes provinces. Last but definitely not least, James Scott is our account manager for the Western region that covers Saskatchewan, Alberta, and BC. Also, obviously, similar to the provinces, the account managers cover respectfully the territories up north based on their time zones. So I think we can jump in right away into our topics. We have plenty to talk about today. A lot of interesting topics. The first one that we're going to talk about is, we all watched a very interesting video by Dr. Sekon about aerosols and air quality, about research, about what do we even consider evidence-based guidelines, whether good evidence or bad evidence. And Jay's gonna cover, maybe not cover, but maybe discuss more about that interesting video that definitely, has been quite popular in the industry, and he got a lot of responses on. We're going to share the link as Jay progresses through the conversation. Jake, take it on.
All right, thank you, Alex, and yeah, good afternoon and good morning for those of you guys watching us today, wherever you are in across the country. So happy Friday to you guys. All right, so just like what Alex had mentioned, so this is like a little disclaimer before I jump into this, because I'm not, as we often say, these are just talks that we've gathered based on research, based on what we read, based on experience of other people, and we just want to share it to you guys. And yeah, so I'm not an expert of this, and when I came across this topic about aerosols and the science-based evidence on what's really required, or if the things that we see in the news is it really relevant to the dental offices. So it really caught my attention. So yeah, I suggest you guys watch the whole video, as I won't be able to like I don't feel like it would give justice to Dr. Sekon's research. But yeah, here's just a few things that caught my attention. So before that, at the end of the day, what we want to do before we purchase anything, before we implement anything in our office, is that that we are delivering a safety environment to to both our staff and to our patients, right? And that we may be guided by the right things, not just what we hear or what we see on media, or what is offered to us by our sales rep, right? So, talking about aerosols, so they say, remember when they opened up the phase for dental treatments, what are they? The emergency and urgent procedures only, and we have to be we have to be watchful of the instruments that we're using, if it's if it produces aerosol, right? So like those machines that produces those, such as like the ultrasonics or the air polishers and things to that effect. Now, when yes, that is true. They do produce aerosols, but when we see, not a lot of people are informed. Again, just like what I told you earlier, I'm not like, I don't have any medical background myself. It's just based on conversation and what I've seen. Now, those things that splashes that we see when we're getting a cleaning or we're getting a treatment, they say that's just only a splatter, right? So what is a splatter? Now, is that are those aerosols? Because you see those little things that's flying around. But then if it's actually visible to a human eye, then that's not really harmful, because what happens is that they're the size of the particulate matter, or those things that we see, the splatter that we so call, is like about 50 to 60 microns, and then they just evaporate. They just due to the subject of gravity, they just actually fall. So that's what it is. Now, what's actually dangerous to us, that would actually penetrate deep into our lungs, would be the particulate matters that are like 2.5 microns, or they even say like 10 microns and smaller, and those are the ones that are really harmful, because we cannot see them, and 2.5 or less is the one that's really penetrating into our lungs. And as we've seen in the news, the virus that is out there, the COVID, is like about 0.065 microns to like 0.15 microns. And what does that mean to us in a dental environment? In the procedural guidelines, now you would have heard that, like, the first thing, or aside from the regular check, that the patient comes in, you get their temperatures get checked. One of the procedure that they need to do is to rinse, right? To gargle like a 1.5% hydrogen peroxide for like 60 seconds. Now, they would say it's better if you do 2 rinses, or another what do you call this? Alternative is an IO rinse. Now, what that actually helps us with, or the patients, it helps the patients with, would be of course, it rinses the bacteria off, and it kills that, and that doesn't treat it, but then it kills the bacteria, and it helps. And at the end of the day, it gives the patient and the staff peace of mind. So going back to the aerosol topic, what I found interesting was the videos that Dr. Sikhan had shown in that. So it's like the first half of it would give you the science, and then the second half of the video would be the actual treatments. There were treatments that he's done, and there were, like, he had a like an air quality measurement that he used, and it was really interesting, because like when like earlier we mentioned 2.5 microns is what is like considered like dangerous, that would actually penetrate into our lungs. So the measurement that he tested there was, one of the videos that I saw interesting was, like, he ran a high speed tool, not in the patient's mouth, but just in the air. So you would see just to present that the air quality measurement, the digital meter is actually working. So like when he just sprayed it randomly, it increased to a significant amount, and that's without turning on those like air quality treatments, like the high volume ejector, or any like vacuum filters within the area. So it increased significantly. And then now, like when he turned on the machine, like yeah, he has a dental suction unit, he has a surgically clean air, and then and then he has the HVE from this company he wasn't really endorsing, but funny, I got a call from just before this webcast, from inquiring that if we supply that, thinking that we are a hardware company, where we're not. But anyway, so when he turned that on, when he was doing the treatment, it actually went down. It's actually lower. Like when you have the HVE on, and the vacuum, the filter on, and then the suction unit on, like it's down to, like, the air quality is like point 13 or some point 013 or something like that. So it's actually with looking at that, what does that tell us? It tells us that it gives you peace of mind now that, oh, okay, well, this is the dental aerosols that they're talking about, right? But this does not tell us that we have to be careless, that and not put on the safety precautions, not wearing the proper PPEs. We should still be wearing proper PPEs, like a level 3 mask, or anything equivalent to that, safety goggles, or the face shield, right? And then complete gown, and things like that. So that's what I found interesting there. And again, later on, because the reason why this got my attention was, based on the conversations that I've been having, is like everybody's confused with what they're going to get, right? They don't know. And you've heard me talk about this, like maybe 2 weeks ago, that, okay, well, am I going to get this kind of air filtration or not? Because like, I don't know what's happening. So we should just be informed. And as Dr. Khan was saying, like industrial, whether that's industrial particulates or biological particulates, and the science behind it is the same, because they have the same mass and they have the same physical behavior. So having those things in mind, it gives us a sense of knowledge and confidence in going back to work. So that's with both with the staff and the patients themselves. And at the end of the day, we just want to provide a safe environment for everybody, for the whole community. So yeah, just check out his research. It was very insightful.
Awesome, Jay. Thank you very much. And Jay and I had probably about a half-hour conversation over said video, and opinions of people, and people who are trying to be thought leaders with regards to what you should be doing within your clinic. I'll share what I told Jay as a transition between this topic and our next. I think the biggest thing with everyone's opinion and what they share is that at the end of the day, it's just an opinion. As a regulated profession, what matters is what your regulator tells you should be doing, whether it's your professional regulator or provincial public health. The dental profession is basically bound to all of those and some other ones, but these are the relevant ones for reopening. And I think that the bare minimum that you must do is what the guidelines of your regulator tell you. If you want to do something beyond that, you're welcome to do so. So I think that is what it boils down to. There's a lot of people now, and Dr. Sekon is one of them. We shared a link to a dentist from Beverly Hills last week about what they did in their office. But what it boils down to is what you need to do is what your regulator tells you, plus whatever you feel would make you, your team, and your patients feel safe. That is what you should be doing. And I think, we were talking a lot about, what happens if you don't follow all of the guidelines because you watched a video of some, CDC, I don't know, whomever, specialist, whatever. And the reality is that you are probably going to void your insurance and potentially be open to a variety of different risks with regards to professional misconduct. That's basically what you're doing. So I think it's very important to do what the regulator says, plus whatever you want to do to feel comfortable. You, your team, your patients, obviously, but not do what the regulator says minus things that you feel are expensive or minus the things that you feel are uncomfortable. So I think the baseline is what the regulators say, just because it's a regulated profession, whether we like it or not. So I think that's important to take note of. And there's we live in an era with abundance of information, and we need to be very careful which advice we listen to. So in any event, that's actually a really good segue into our next topic. There's mainly the biggest concerns that we're hearing from hygienists with regards to not only PPE but also the touch points that Jay talked about with regards to air quality and aerosols. A lot of ultrasonic tools and how that is going to work. Should they replace their gowns or not? And mainly from the entire dental team, mainly the people who are extremely concerned are the hygienists who usually operate with ultrasonic or high-speed tools. So we came across a document from the College of Hygienists in BC that addresses a lot of questions that are being asked. And James is going to cover some of them and kind of in detail with regards to that document, because I think it's important to understand what are the concerns and what are the regulators telling us. James, take it up.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Jay. No, you're correct. And just to kind of touch base on something Jay had said right at the end when he was talking there, he had said, right now it's having the knowledge and the confidence to go forward. And I would also add, the security of feeling safe in those work environments. And we've gone through a transition of many different things over just a 2-month period all across the world. In our dental industry, there's been, and from an account manager standpoint, when we're talking to offices, that it really breaks it down to 2 major anxieties. So when this all first started, what I was, experiencing was, well, when can I go back to work? Like, that was the feeling, like, we need to get back to work right away. We need to keep things going. And now, because we've had such a lengthy time in between, the new anxiety is, how do I go back to work? Right. So now it's a little bit on another scale. I know, Alex, you and I, we were talking briefly here before we went live. The CDHO has just put out some new guidelines as well. I believe that you're going to put a link in so people can access that, and that's awesome. Thank you. And no, just, you're right. I had a document shared with me from the CDHBC on the transition to phase 2 of the COVID response plan. And I wanted to highlight today just some of the points and some of the key takeaways that I felt that I experienced through the reading. Now, one thing was a little bit different because I've noticed in other provinces, it's kind of been more of like a breakdown of this is kind of like what you do going forward, whereas this document's kind of open with interpretation, but also is trying to engage you to kind of think about, you know, when it's safe for you to go back to work and what you need to do right now to go through that transition to phase 2. Some great points were brought up. That brings questions, like I said, and concerns to light. But a lot of it was good context on the provisions at all areas of the office with the available evidence to support the guidance on upholding safe practices, like I just mentioned. The guidelines are based on a minimal acceptable level of care in this document. And one big point that I noticed here, and I just want to quickly read this little bit here for you. It should be noted that the ability to resume the provision of non-essential care on May 19th does not mean that there is an expectation from the college of a must return. Each practice and each within that practice will have to consider all the information provided as well to their own circumstances to determine when and how the care can be provided in a manner that will keep patients, themselves, and all within the practice safe. Some registrants have decided that resumption of provision of in-person non-essential care on May 19th was not prudent or desirable for a multitude of reasons. And as Dr. Henry stated, the resumption can be an anxiety-inducing time for many, such as we encourage you to take slow, thoughtful, and measured approach, utilizing sound professional judgment as you go forward. And it obviously that points to everybody, all dental professionals across the country. And like I said, this document does differ a little bit from other guidelines. BC has adopted a Made in BC approach. And each province has been hit differently. Their approaches to openings are as such. They feel revising other plans as guidelines are not an appropriate response to the restart of the BC plan. And I feel that is true as well, with some areas that are completely hit harder, especially Ontario, Quebec, BC, Alberta in some sections as well. I think extra precautionary measures will be taken in those areas to get everyone open up. One part that it was talking about was the control of AGMPs, the aerosol generating medical procedures on open concept items while you're doing those procedures. And what this really outlines as well is each practice setting is unique and physical space needs to be considered. And we've also talked about this in previous webcasts with you folks as well about how your internal operations are going to change and how some of your renovations or anything that you need to do to make this a safe environment, that there's a lot of things to consider. And talking to some offices in BC are just electing not to open right away. I've had one office even tell me, James, seriously, I'm probably going to ride it out until the second wave's over. And that's just a precautionary that they're taking for themselves and for their patients. And you know what, at the end of the day, I completely appreciate it. But I know that there's also a need for people right now to see dentists. And I also know that there's a need for all of us to try and resume some sort of normalcy as quick as possible. It goes down a little bit in the document to talk about the control of AGMPs. And some of the considerations are obviously to mimic what Jay was saying, the ventilation, even the proximity to your patients, potential for aerosol travel. Jay covered that as well. And one point that it said in bold writing that AGMPs must be kept to a minimum and high volume suction must be used to reduce aerosol at the source. So it's tough because I know financially this is even harder for offices like us being in the industry collectively. We see this across the board. But these measures do need to be taken in place. And I don't think I've had a few offices that have said, 3-6 months down the road, this isn't going to matter. I don't really buy that type of mentality. I think that this will probably be a new standard going forward. So if anything happens in the future, another pandemic outbreak or things like that, that the dental industry in itself is readily readily available to help where they can, because these measures were already taken in place during this COVID time. Now, most of you that know me know that I write a ton of notes, so I couldn't write pages and pages of notes based on this document, but I do have it up here on my screen, and I just kind of want to quickly go through a few points that kind of stood out to me. What is the minimum PPE requirement for oral health care, including dental hygiene and procedures? It says here the CDHBC IPAC guidelines refine minimum PPE as gloves, protective eyewear, masks, and protective clothing to the IPAC guidelines. If gowns are worn over scrubs, any such long sleeve clothing is patient specific and must be changed before each new patient. There's parts here that are asking about what level of masks are being recommended if no aerosols are being produced, and again, due to those same guidelines. The guidance on masks for the provisions of all oral health care, including dental hygiene treatment, except when providing AGMPs to a suspected or confirmed COVID-19 positive patient. The guidelines do not stipulate the type or level of mask, but surgical masks are deemed appropriate. So again, like as I was reading through this, it's more of a document that they're answering questions from the community that has come in throughout phase 1. They're putting this out as kind of a precursor to phase 2. They're allowing you to kind of think for yourselves and to answer some of the more important things. But if you're using this document kind of as a guideline to follow by, it's going to be very tough to, because there are no specific guidelines. And again, like I mentioned before, because of the Made in BC type approach that they're having for their province, it will not always mimic and mirror the other presentations that have been brought on by other provinces. Is hand scaling a non-AGMP? What is being recommended for that? Hand scaling is not considered to be an equivalent aerosol producing capacity as many other procedures. Hand scaling may be provided as an appropriate form of debridement when the risk assessment deems the health benefit of providing oral health care outweighs the risk to the patient and the OCHP or OHCP. Can I use ultrasonic scalers? We were just talking about that. If I use the proper PPE. Again, it says ultrasonics are known to produce significantly greater amounts of aerosols than hand scaling, and in bold, the use of ultrasonics must be kept to a minimum. So again, like I said, there's a lot of different parts to this document. I do suggest that, like especially within BC, that you read it. If you have any folks or peers, within that province that can share the document with you. If you're in another province, it's always good to have multiple information in case something was missed, even within your own guidelines. One thing I found interesting here is, can I use a 3D printed face shield? For those who have the capability, I know that there are some people that are selling those. The BCHDA says yes, you can. Yeah, so like I said, again, you have to take into consideration everything that is happening. You have to look over these documents, find out what the solution is going to be for you. Make that, create that part to be a part of your reopening plan. I know a few offices have already opened up the doors slowly, and we've gone through a couple of things that they're doing. But again, we want to make sure that we're giving you the access to the information that you need to make the smartest decisions, not just for you, but for your families and your patients and everyone's health in general as well. That was technically my end of things. I can pass it off. I don't know if Alex or anybody has any thoughts in between, but yeah, let's discuss.
Well, I do talking for a living, so I always have things to talk about. So I was just juggling the names because we lost Jay's video, so everyone's names kind of moved around, and now we have the topic going over Noel's eyes, so that's kind of weird and creepy. So I'm going to remove all of it. But you're right. Like and we talked about guidelines. You have to make sure that you keep the guidelines as to what your regulator says. And then the guidelines are very vague, which is one of the concerns that a lot of people have. Having said that, it's interesting how everyone is complaining that they want the guidelines to be evidence-based. Well, I'm assuming that those are evidence-based, but the evidence is not directly connected necessarily to the COVID-19 just because, well, it's a new thing. So it is obvious that we're going to have less information about the COVID-19. So we're going to have more challenges with developing guidelines, or the regulators are going to have more challenges developing guidelines because it's an ever-evolving situation. So I think it's good that you want evidence-based guidelines, but I think what we have are evidence-based guidelines, just there's not enough evidence. So they are just trying to make it as best as they can to make sure that people are protected as much as they can. So I think that's kind of what's happening, and it's going to continue to change as things evolve. Like I heard of a couple of new outbreaks in BC. I heard that there's a huge uptake in army forces that are helping out in care homes. That's very concerning. And those are the things that they're looking at, and they're trying to figure out how to incorporate that with opening the economy and trying to get things back to normal, because obviously we cannot all sustain on federal assistance for like the rest of our lives. It's just not going to happen. Money is going to run out. So they have to figure out what it is that they're doing, and all we have to do, we're small people in a big world. We have to rely on the fact that government officials and the organizations that are responsible for these types of things are doing their best to help protect the public. And I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to talk about any of those. I feel that at the end of the day, if they want to kill people, then they won't have anyone who pays taxes. Then no one's going to be happy. So I think they have the interest of making sure that people are safe and healthy. How they're doing it, and who's the influencer, I don't want to go into it. But with regards to our industry, I think it's important to note that those guidelines that are being advertised, they are not complete. So 100% every time, go and challenge your regulator, ask them questions. They will have to clarify and give you answers. I see a lot of people on social media and a variety of groups that I'm a member of where clinicians are basically complaining and bashing regulators. But when you ask them, did you clarify this with the regulator? They say no. So you can complain, and I know Manitoba is known as the complaining province sometimes, because we all like to complain. Complain it's cold, complain it's hot, complain the gas is high, complain the gas is low. Well, no, I've never seen anyone complain that the gas is low. But the reality is, you shouldn't be complaining about things. You should be taking action, especially if you feel really strongly about it. You should tunnel that to the regulator to get clarification. And sometimes they're going to tell you, look, we don't know. Like I was reading, maybe it was on the CDA 01, or I don't remember where, but they were asking the dental regulator with regards to what type of air purification, HVAC system that they need. And the answer from the regulator was, we don't specialize in these types of things. So you need to approach a proper, you need to approach public health, you need to approach the Association of HVAC companies. You have to ask them. A professional that knows HVAC needs to come to your physical location and look at the layout, look at the units you already have, and then make recommendations. So I think that, in terms of answering questions, you just need to know who is the organization that is responsible to give you answers and direct your questions there, and it's their job to answer. So that is what they will be doing. So I think that is an important component that you need to keep in mind. And Transitioning to the next topic, that's going to be a drastic transition, so I'm going to see if I can smooth it out a little bit. When this pandemic started, everyone's been saying that, now the cards have been shuffled, using this statement and everything. And if you know me, you know I like analogies. So, the cards may have shuffled, but you still have the same deck of cards. So you still are dealing with the same issues that you have been dealing before. It's just some priorities have shifted, but everything remained the same. A business is a business. You need to look at, work safety. You need to look at privacy. You need to look at marketing. You need to look at your community. All of these things remain the same. We have. We're fortunate to be able to work throughout this pandemic, and part of that fortune is the ability to have amazing conversations with members of our industry. Those conversations sometimes is just about letting people vent about their concerns and trying to direct them to the right places. Other times it's just sharing from our experience and just helping them out with something that is, it's just something small that was a big deal to people at the time. And I think through those conversations are, our essence in general. And I think we really enjoy it, and we learn something new every time we speak with offices. So as such, I want to introduce our third topic, which is a very interesting topic here, and it deals with, are patients going to be looking for a new dentist? And, as always with complex and really deep questions, the answer is yes and no. And to talk more about it, and to dive more in depth into, why are we even discussing this? What is the importance? Mike here is gonna discuss this and share a little bit from his experience in the past week.
Thanks, Alex. So yeah, during the last couple of weeks, a lot of my conversations when I've been speaking with clients has been pretty much about implementing like digital charting and other digital solutions to remove paper out of the office. This week, though, it came across quite a bit differently. To my surprise, clients actually came and approached me about an underlying concern that patients are going to be looking elsewhere for a dentist once offices reopen. So personally thinking, I can definitely, I would think initially a lot of people won't be searching out for the dentist, and they'll go to the dentist that they have already. However, then thinking about it a little bit more, I came to think that, and through conversation with the clients as well, that they had this perspective that some offices want to have like an effective communication with their patients, as well as providing that part of that communication being the steps that they're taking to try to make their environment safe and secure. So with that kind of concern, a lot of offices are shifting their focus from that paperless aspect to online reviews and keeping up that patient communication. So one thing that I ask myself is how are we going to communicate with those patients and get that point across to them that everything is safe and such, so you don't have your own patients looking elsewhere. Well, the number one thing is communication, making sure that you're communicating with them, whether it be about their outstanding treatments or what you've done in your clinic to provide that safe environment, and the steps that you're going to be putting forward to, say, for example, minimize touch points. Similar to last week, that video that was mentioned over in Hollywood, with that office and how he kind of did a highlight of his clinic, that could be one great way to utilize communication with your patients. I mean, you wouldn't need to necessarily do a big e-blast out to all your patients. You could do it in, say, like a form of social media. You can then, in that case, reach out doing one e-blast to all patients and pull them over to your social media account where you can keep up that communication with them. And then, like that video was doing, kind of highlighting all the different things in the office, whether it be like the screening process or the touch points that patients are typically handling. just to give you an example, with the POS machine, if you didn't have tap before, and then now you've gone ahead and implemented that to reduce that touch point, then that's something that you would want to highlight in that video, making your patients feel a lot more comfortable when coming in, as well as a lot more familiar with that screening process. So it doesn't feel as foreign when they walk into the office and they get posed with all the different questions, and not where they feel concerned about trying to reach out to the office, thinking, oh, I'm not sure as to how I'm going to have to go through this. I don't want to burden the office or anything of that. That way you have that channel already open. So that, to me, I thought it was really interesting that they took this concept and they kind of really applied it to all patients and how they're going to feel when coming back here. So at least for myself, I found it as some really good food for thought to kind of sit on and kind of see how are your patients feeling about coming back into the clinic. So keeping up at least with those online reviews, talking with my patients, it's kind of the SEO aspect where they want their information to come up on the first page of Google and such. So if a patient is searching elsewhere, then they have that clinic name, and then they know someone that they can reach out to for more information or just to even learn that clinic process if they're curious. So that's just been my kind of conversation, and that's kind of like how all I've got this week. But it's definitely an interesting perspective versus the last couple of weeks taking that digital approach and removing the paper out of the office.
100%. And it's interesting. It seems like although it is a very stressful situation not to know exactly what it's going to look like coming back to, within the provinces that have yet to kind of go through that process. But now, and I like this because I like when people are thinking business thoughts, because I think that if they work in a business, if they run a business, if they own a business, I think you always need to have the ability to just think of it as a business. You've been decommissioned for a period of time. Who is going to promise you that you're going to have the same patient base that you had before? And the answer is no one. The reality is that you need to take proactive steps to make sure that you are defending this patient base. Defending is a very harsh word, but I use it to illustrate the fact that, if I am a dentist that I am eager to acquire new patients, I will make proactive steps into making sure that everyone in my community knows the tens of thousands of dollars that I have invested to make sure that you are safe within our, high risk clinic. Because if anything has been in the news multiple times in the last 2 months, is that dentists, dental assistants, and dental hygienists are the highest risk professions, which when you as a patient, general public, watch this on CBC or Global or wherever, you realize that if that's the case, well, then you as a patient, you're also at a higher risk. So, as the public is being more and more educated with regards to the risk aspects, if you want to be that community pillar that we speak on pretty much every Friday, and on other webcasts that we have, then you have to be able to communicate everything that you are doing. On the other hand, if you're not doing anything special, you're just following the guidelines, to the best of your ability, and you don't want to communicate with your patients, you can still survive, but I can guarantee you will see less patients than you saw before, and your road to getting back to where you were in terms of production and patient care to where you've been before the shutdown is going to be a lengthy one, and at times it's going to be impossible. And basically it's going to depend on how aggressive marketing is happening around you with your competition. And if it's going to be very aggressive, you're going to lose a lot of patients. And if it's not going to be that aggressive, then you'll be fine. Hey, if you're a monopoly in a small town, it doesn't really matter because the people have no choice. They might have higher anxiety, and you might have some other psychological or psychosocial aspects to deal with. But you don't really have to do it all. I think you still should, because having really good ingrained relationship with your community is very important to any business. And as such, I think it's very important for you to engage them and share what it is that you're doing, even if it is just following what your regulators are telling you. So again, I think it's crucial that you're able to really defend your patient base, because if you can't, you're going to struggle financially getting your clinic out of where we are at the moment, and that potentially is going to be really difficult for you to deal with. So I think it's very important that you're able to address that. So again, if you're not really sure how to do that, please do get in touch with us, and we'll learn more about your unique situation with regards to your clinic, and we will try to recommend based on our experience and our conversations with offices that might potentially have similar issues. So we definitely like that. We never like to see offices struggle financially. I think it's very painful, and it should never happen. So taking it from a fairly scary topic, I want to go into something that is extremely exciting. We are especially proud of this because we are the first company to implement this. I think it carries extreme value, not only in terms of privacy, but also in convenience. And just, sometimes you're doing things, you're forced to do things the wrong way because you just don't have the right tools. And starting to do things right is extremely important, and it gives you this good feeling that finally you're doing things right. So Noel is going to touch upon our new integration with Secure Send. We're going to probably next week at some point going to issue a press release with regards to that in conjunction with CDA. But in essence, this is the right tool for secure communication, and it's very exciting for us to be the first to make it available throughout Canada. And Noel's going to touch upon some more of the details, so take it on.
Thank you, Alex, and good day to everyone. And yeah, it's Secure Send, a CDA Secure Send. So what is the CDA Secure Send? This is the secure way or that a dentist can exchange patient documents. As we all know, sending the patient documents over the email is in violations of the patient privacy laws. And it's quick, and to send information, you can send that in a few seconds. It's just like you are sending an email, but in a secure manner. And now the CDA, in partnership with the CDA Net, they have created this, and there is two ways, as far as I know, there's two ways to use the Secure Send. One is you can log into the CDA Net website and with your credentials and click on the Secure Send tab, and then you can do it that way. And the other one, which like Alex mentioned, we are so proud that we are the very first to integrate the Secure Send through Maxident. And how this works is it uses the CDA digital certificate installed in your machines. And I believe there's no additional cost into using the service. That is being bundled with your CDA Net subscription, right? And if you are not registered yet, you log into the CDA Net and click on My Account, and there's a My Subscription, and then click on subscribe under that CDA Secure Send. Now, how do we send a file? Like I said, it's like you have sending an email, but it's with the separate there's a separate screen. So in Maxident, there's a menu there. It says CDA Secure Send. Then when you click on that, it will bring up the screen, and it will have the few informations that are required. Now you can, if you know the email address for the recipients, you can type it right away, or you can search for the recipient that's on the list. And again, there are a couple of informations that it requires. One is the email address, the name, the subject, and of course your notes. Now, how would you send the files? So there you can either drag and drop the files, or you can click on, you can browse it and then select those files. And according to the CDNet websites, you can attach as many as 20 files, or not more than 2 gig. And again, as this is secure, if you are sending this to a patient, you can create passwords. And how would you receive this? How would you receive this files or the message? It will be sent to your emails, and you can download the files. There's an additional link by email, and you can click on the download the files, and you can have it will be downloaded. And how long is it being kept? As far as I know, this is the files are being kept into the CDA Net website for 30 days, and after that, it will be deleted. All right, and that's it for me. Alex, do you have anything to add?
Always. Yeah, so I think, the putting aside the fact that, we have it available not only for all of our clients, but also to any dental clinic in Canada through our free practice management license. I think that this is the time when organizations must come together and use some of their services to create superior value to members of the industry. So this is part of the things that we're doing on a daily basis. We have, I'm in conversations with, about 5 other organizations with regards to potential collaboration. And as things evolve, we will make more announcements. But I think the idea is that when you join forces and there's good synergy, then you can create magic for your clients. And this is our roadmap. This is what we're doing. And I think that you should use the tools that are standard within your industry. So CDA Net's standard for claims transmission. You should use the same platform with things you already have and leverage that for efficiency and security and privacy. The ability to securely send information to your patients is incredible. The ability to interact with any registered provider through Canada and ask for recommendations for a case, just so you're able to increase, the potential probability of success of your prescribed treatment and get some pointers from specialists. That is incredible tool to be able to increase the level of oral care that you provide to your patients. And I think, I want to exaggerate a little bit just because it's a Friday afternoon. It should be criminal for you to not use it. I want to urge everyone to use it even on the portal and start interacting with peers and colleagues throughout the nation, and make sure that you are providing the best oral care and treatment solutions for your patients. This is one of the tools to do it in a secure way, and I urge you to start doing it as soon as you go to practice, back to practice in a safe way. I think it's very, very important. So what are we going to talk about with our next topic? The next topic is going to be an interesting one. We're going to, well, I'm going to touch upon financial impacts on companies that service our industry. We are a company like that, and there are many other hundreds of companies that service our industry. Obviously, you've been closed. You have sustained severe financial strains here, but there's a trickling effect, and companies that service the industry are impacted as well. Yesterday, I've read an announcement by Pelton and Crane by Cavalcare about basically they're stopping all of the sales, and they're just going to run down the support based on their already obligations, for operatory equipment, all of their chairs and stuff like that. This is very sad to hear. I think that the ability to work together, vendor and client, and find that, middle ground where you understand that if there's no middle ground, then you might have substantially less vendors coming out of this pandemic. I similarly to how I dislike reading about dental clinics closing, I equally, just because I come from a business background, I equally dislike hearing about any type of business closing, whether it's a competitor or someone in a completely different industry. These things are very sad, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that the impacts of this pandemic are not just on the dental industry. And sure, there are industries that are benefiting, but that benefit comes at a price. The industries that have had to pick up their production are suffering from fatigue, and not necessarily they can continue at the same pace, doing the things that they have to. So these things are impacting everyone, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that when they say we're all in this together, they really mean it, and it's really exactly that. One other point I want to make on this particular topic is, in any business, if you go to business school, one of the main things that they try and teach you is that you have to turn a threat into an opportunity. So if you ever went to business school, or you did a business webinar or whatnot, they talk to you about a SWOT analysis where you have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what they tell you is that if you really want to, have a sustainable business long term, then what it is that you need to do is you need to turn all of your threats into opportunities and try to adapt and change your business in a way that creates more value and new services. So I think that is what all organizations need to do, whether you're a dental clinic or a company that services the dental industry. I know we've been doing this. We've been offering more and more services on top of broadcasts like these, where we share knowledge, information with our peers in the industry, and this is very important. So we're going to continue on doing this. I think it's excellent to be able to reinvent yourself and to add more to your portfolio for things that actually make complete sense given the new reality. So that's kind of my points for today. I want to thank everyone who's been watching. It's always a pleasure to kind of use Friday as a weekly summary and be able to share some of these topics with everyone, with the world. And I look forward to next broadcasts that we have. Not just these Friday ones. We do all kinds of webinars on a variety of topics. So feel free to join us for those. Any other comments, guys, that you want to share?
Yeah, can I just chime in for a quick second? I appreciate giving me an opportunity to do this. Earlier in my part that I was talking about, and I was talking about, if you have peers in different provinces to even share information to see if there's things that you're missing. I want to disclaimer this, that you don't look from BC to Manitoba and say, oh, they're not doing it there, we're not going to do it here either. I was more or less explaining myself to say, again, if there is something that they're doing in another province and it's like, yeah, that makes sense to your clinic, I want to adopt that because that's taking me one step closer to feeling more secure when I open, then definitely use that information for that. Also, a few talks that I've had too have been central over the last 2 weeks on offices that are completely paper, that don't have one op or anything up front. I've talked to 2 offices where they're now purchasing a few computers and starting on that process. But EDI billing and electronic billing, that's been a topic of conversation as well. And folks, please remember, at the end of the day, prior to COVID, some of these insurance companies were starting to stop doing manual submissions and paper submissions and only wanted it electronically only. Your best bet is to call and figure out all the companies that you're working with to find out if any of them have switched to completely electronic billing, because if you're still in the paper world, that's going to be a hard-pressed issue when someone comes to pay or they need to do the work that they need to do. So that is something definitely to consider. With the SWOT analysis that Alex also mentioned, I've done a few of those for up-and-coming businesses. I did that in business school, went through that whole thing, and it's just as simple as drawing a quadrant, a big plus mark on a piece of paper, strengths up top, weaknesses below, opportunities beside the S, and the threats below that. And if you can write down points in each of those quadrants, you may be able to visually see opportunities that you can change that have been a threat or a weakness into something that's a strengthness for you. And trust me, just a little bit of doing a little writing, it really helps alleviate some of that stress and that anxiety that you have. And lastly, non-dental related, the NHL was voting with the NHLPA last night on a 24-team playoff format. And if that's the case, the Jets are possibly going to play the Calgary Flames in the first round. So little rivalry between us and in Alberta over there. I was hoping for an Edmonton-Calgary matchup, but we'll see how that goes. And that's my Sports Center for the week.
Awesome, James. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Do you guys want to add anything before we kind of wrap up?
Let's go, Jets.
Go, Jets, go. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. We will see you next Friday, same time, same place. Until then, stay safe, and we will talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.